Next up is the pre-start. Items 1 to 13 are done by the second officer. Items 14 to 27 are done by the right pilot. The first item on the list is loose objects, and that's a little different from the previous item, loose equipment, because loose equipment was more about, like, is the flashlight present? And this is more about, is there any rubbish on the floor? So loose objects are checked. Battery handle and circuit breakers, 28 volt and checked. So the battery handle needs to be in 24 volt position, and all the circuit breakers needs to be checked. Electrical panel and warnings checked. Okay, so we go back to the electrical panel. Check that the 28 volt ground power is connected and the ground power green light illuminates. Set the DC power selector in the DC ground. Check that the magnetic indicators show connection from the ground power to between the bus bars, that's over here, and the ground power. Check that the distribution bars are supplied and the battery ammeters read 0. Check that the emergency power selector is safety wired in position norm. Test the generator and alternator trip and overheat warnings. Okay, so we trip and reset, and we trip and reset. And now correctly, the overheat will no longer trip the generators. Oh, and by the way, I didn't show you. If you press an overheat or something, or a trip, you will get the electrical fail. Let's strip that. You will get the electrical fail master warning as well. And we'll do the same with alternator and the right alternator. Hydraulic flow and level warnings checked. Check all the 4 pump flow warning lights to be illuminated. Those lights are illuminated. Depress the low level test buttons and check that the low level warning lights and hydraulic level master warning light illuminate. Checked and blue. Cell call and recorder checked. Well, the cell call code that's done in the avionics bay, so we don't touch that. The recorder, we can change the trip and the flight number, and then the date, it's the 8th of March, so we put in 08. We check if there's enough foil remaining, so we have another, oh, it's nearly run out and about 12 hours remaining. Press and hold the recorder button. If you hold it a few seconds, it will lock like we're still holding it. And now we have to press and hold this for a few seconds. Might be needed up to 15 seconds, but if you let it go, it should stay illuminated, and then the warning light, recorder warning light, will go on again. And now it will just engrave the trip number and the date onto the foil. Red pump checked and on. Well, we've seen this in the hydraulic video, but we can also see that the brake pressure is very low. It's 0 brake pressure, and the parking brake is off. Okay, we have a little bit of brake pressure, but we need to turn on the pump. So turn on pump 1. And we need to also check pump circuit number 2. And like now, if it doesn't light up, just have to depressurize the red pump, the red accumulator a little bit, and let go and see if it works on circuit 2. So the pressure should cycle between 2000 and 2500 psi plus or minus 150. Radios and radar. Well, we've already done a few of the radios. We can tune here COM, we can tune nav, and we can also turn on the ADF. So ADF is already on. Turn on the master level control on the audio panels. So that's over here. Master control to maximum. Place the radar range knob in standby. Turn on the radar in standby. Depress the fuel temperature alarm test buttons marked cold and check that both fuel temp master warning lights come on. So cold checked on the left, cold checked on the right. Depress the fuel temp alarm test buttons marked hot and check for proper warning. So hot, you can see it stays on the left with a warning light, and we can reset this by pressing the reset button, and hot on the right. Red light, master warning, and reset. And then depress the reset to rearm the fuel heat control circuit. That's done. Anti-ice checked, off and auto. Set the engine anti-ice switches to position on and check all 4 engine and nacelle magnetic indicators turn white. On. They're all 4 white. Press the half capacity test buttons. So if you press these half capacity test buttons, green light comes on. And if you let go, they will turn back to their full position. This aircraft was modified. It also has an engine anti-ice half capacity switch. You can switch it on half and you get the amber warning light. Check the airfoil anti-icing systems as follows. The airfoil anti-icing system is normally inhibited on the ground, but we can test it with the following procedure. Set the airfoil anti-icing switches on the ice protection panel in the position on. Set the half capacity switch in position half, it's already there. Place the airfoil anti-ice test switches above the AC panel in the position test. Hold the temperature control switch auto manual in the position hot. And now you can see the valves opening. Check the indicator lights marked half. Come on. Let's move the camera. Half and half. Set the half capacity switch in the position full. Keep this holding in hot. Check that the amber full capacity light is illuminated. And check that the indicator lights marked full come on. They are on. Place the control switches as follows. Test switches, normal. Airfoil anti-ice switches off. Engine anti-ice switches off. Half capacity switches to half. Temperature control switch to auto. Normal emergency switch safety wired in norm. Checked. Cabin pressure panel set. Turn the cabin out knob until the estimated cruising altitude plus 2000 feet is shown in the small window of the indicator. Obtainable cabin altitude will be indicated by the cabin altitude pointer. If the cruising altitude is less than 21,000 feet, set the cabin altitude to feet elevation. So let's say if we want to fly at, if we want to fly at 27,000 feet, we'll set it to 29 and the cabin will be at just under 4,000 cabin altitude. But for today we'll just leave it at 0. Calculate the cabin rate of climb by dividing the cabin altitude as obtained above by the time required to climb to cruising altitude. Set the rate knob accordingly, normally 11 o'clock position. Okay, 11 o'clock position. Minimum will give you 50 feet a minute and the center position about 500 feet a minute and the most right position about 2000 feet a minute. Check that the ground depress valve switch is safety wired in normal. Checked. Check that the regulator selector is safety wired in normal. Checked. Check that the cabin altitude manual control switch is safety wired in the position decrease to ensure that the manual discharge valve is closed. Actually, I'm just going to show you. You can break the safety wire and you can hold the switch in open or increase and in decrease until it's closed and you can close the guard. Navigate on board. I've made 2 little charts here just for aesthetics, but really what you should do is get something like nav charts or something and you can just prepare your plates here, but that's up to you. Pins and covers removed. Radio ventilation ground, we've already done that. Inverters checked on. Okay, place the emergency inverter switch in the position on. Place the main inverter switch in the position alt, it's already there. Place the alternate inverter switch in position on. Check that the red warning light goes out. Voltage is correct, approximately 115 volts phase A and C. So we go here to the engineer panel, we're going to check. This is approximately 115 volts, slightly over. We can check here phase A and phase C. And there's a note. The inverter voltage may exceed maximum limit during the initial operation, but should stabilize at normal values within some minutes. Furthermore, phase C voltage may be approximately 5 volts higher than phase A due to unequal load distribution. Use phase A for reference. And we check the frequency range is between 380 and 420 CPS. Set the main inverters to the position off. Yeah, you can see now the emergency inverter has kicked in, so the captain's instruments are powered and the co-pilot instruments are not. Check that, the red warning light comes on. Checked. Voltage is approximately 115 volts. And now we also check the transformer voltage should be 0, and this is to make sure current that we see here comes from the emergency inverter. Now we set the normal inverter to on. It should come on in a few seconds. And we check the normal inverter voltage, 115 plus or minus a little bit. And now the transformer voltage is 26 volts. And the other one also. Synchronizer off, totalizers 0, autopilot off. Check that the autopilot switch is in the position off and check that the turn knob is in neutral position. Gear down and checked. Check that the landing gear handle is down in the detent position. Check that the gear handle safety catch is engaged, so I can pull it. Check that the manual release button is in the auto position. Check that the 3 green and 3 amber indicator lights are illuminated. Flaps 20 set, so the flap position is at 20 and the lever is at 20. Overheat panel checked. Depress the overheat warning test buttons and check that the corresponding warning lights come on. Check also that the compartment overheat master warning light illuminates. Hydraulic fluid overheat lights. Here are the compartment overheat lights, all 4 of them. And we check the extinguisher head test switches, shot 1 and 2, shot 1 and 2. Navigation lights set. This aircraft, it's standard to leave them off during the day, because it also dims all kind of warning lights, but at night you would put them on steady. So the following lights are automatically dimmed. Those are the gear down and the landing gear doors, the speed brake out lights, the MDA lights, the fuel low level lights. Those are the amber lights, they are dimmed as well. The autopilot control button lights on this panel, and the left hand and the right hand nozzle light. Temperature control panel set. Set the temperature control rheostats in the desired position. I like it a little bit warmer, so I just put them on 6. Place both temperature control switches in the position auto. Check that the pilot feet and windshield ventilation handles are fully forward. Cabin signs on. Fasten belts when the fueling is ready and the no smoking sign is on. Warning panel and lights checked. Depress all the test buttons on the master warning panel. Okay, so there we go. Max speed. We can test all the other lights. Stall, oil pressure, fuel pressure, engine overheat. This is the engine fire, the other engine fire. Cabin low pressure, engine overheat, fuel pressure, oil pressure, ice, and this will stays on. Cabin overpressure. And to reset it, you have to go to the de-icing master valves and press the reset button. Test or check the following lights. Autopilot off, speed brakes out and moving, and with this one be careful not to accidentally pull the parachute handle. The nozzle lights, left and right. Fuel low pressure lights, they're already on. Fuel low level. Landing gear, red lights. Cabin doors, these are already on. Belly doors, same story. Parking brakes and ground plug doors. Stall elevator fuel servo, which is there, and flight recorder fail, which is there. Flight controls yellow selector, checked and set. Check the green and blue low pressure warning lights. Blue low pressure, green low pressure. If the mentioned warning lights are not illuminating, check the principal selector in blue and green position and operate the flight controls to reduce the hydraulic pressure below 1200. So if you are doing this during a turnaround, you will have some pressure remaining and just have to get rid of that. Yellow selector in blue on, check if the yellow pump starts. So the yellow pump is here. So do yellow pump, blue on, yellow pump starts. Check that the yellow pump stops at 2500 plus or minus 150 psi. Checked. Move the artificial fuel handle to position off. Check that the artificial fuel pressure to reach 0 and the artificial fuel warning light comes on. Operate the 3 primary flight controls to extreme positions. Okay, full up, full down, and we'll check on the indicators over there. Full left, full right, and neutral, and the rudder, full left, full right, and neutral. Check that the yellow pump starts at about 1700 psi. Place the yellow pump selector in the opposite position. Check that the yellow pump stops at 2500 psi. Operate the 3 primary flight controls quickly, one at a time, and check that the green and blue failure warning lights flash. Yeah, that flashes. Move the artificial fuel handle on and check that the knob moves to the detent position when released. Check that the artificial fuel pressure rises to about 160 knots. Checked. Move the yellow selector to green on. Green on. Operate the 3 primary flight controls to the external positions and check the indicators. So left, right, up and down, rudder left, rudder right. Checked. Check that the primary flight controls loads feel normal, consider that the artificial fuel is on. Check that the yellow pump starts at about 1700 plus or minus 150 psi. So, well, again, we'll just keep moving the ailerons until it's 1700. This time in circuit 2, the pump goes on and it stops there about 2500. Trim controls checked and set. Operate all 3 trim controls to approximately plus or minus 3 to 5 degrees in both directions and check the control surface position. Indications correspond to the trim movement. Let's move the rudder. You can see the pedals move. You can see the indicator move. So that works. We'll put it back in 0. We'll do the same with the aileron. Control moves to the other side. Yokes move, pointer moves, and we put it back in 0. After this check, set the aileron and rudder trim controls to 0 and the elevator trim to 2 degrees nose up. And that's the beginning of the green band. Move the yellow selector to the neutral position. And now we come back to our checklist. So we have done the pre-start items 1 to 13 by the second officer. And we've done the pre-start items 14 to 27 by the right-hand pilot. And we'll continue later when the crew is at their stations.